Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to episode number 35 of the Run It Back podcast. I'm your host, one of the hosts, Sugar Snags, and I'll be building Lego like we're building this podcast, baby. Brick on brick. And I'm going to introduce one of those bricks this week. His name is the producer, DL. DL, how are we?
Snags, I'm good. Love the little Lego introduction. Used to love Lego as a kid. Mate, I feel like we've been waiting forever for a Khabib fight. So huge show today. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about UFC 254. Plus, we've got a couple of Aussies on that card, which is exciting. So they're going to slip right into the predictions. So that's really cool. Plus, we do a nice little refresh on Hot Take. We're going to bring the listeners into the podcast a little bit more. Our normal Run It Back segments are there. But before I get too carried away, I better introduce my studio buddy at Rib HQ down here. Stoney, what's good?
DL, how are we? What's good? The weekend of sport for Stoney has been good. In the AFL, the Mighty Cats have won their way through to the grand final, playing off against DL's beloved Tigers. So a bit of cross-desk rivalry happening in the studio. The mighty Miami Dolphins did it again for the boys today. 24 shutout of the Jets. And as you said, massive UFC card. Can't wait to get into it.
Well, look, one of our other co-hosts today, Statman, the man that's always got the plan, and I love to hear your voice every single fortnight, mate. So how are we?
Mate, I'm doing well. I'm actually loving the Lego motif. I think it's great that we have us building up along with the little Lego pieces. So I like the imagery. Well done, Snags.
Oh, man. No need to hold back the compliments this early in the podcast, but please keep them firing.
And boys, before we jump in the podcast, we've got another special announcement. Snags, we're doing our first giveaway.
That's right, boys. First giveaway for the listeners, for the fans. And we are, I would say we're nearly pulling out all stops, aren't we, DL? So the boys put up a Run It Back t-shirt, the first ever Run It Back t-shirt. So you'll be able to frame this bad boy and put it in the basement, put it in the pool room, I would say. And we're going to get that to the winner. And also we're going to give a UFC Online Store $50 voucher. So we've got two prizes up for grabs for that one giveaway. DL, how do we enter this bad boy?
Yeah, mate. Look, follow us. Give us a like, tag a mate, and if you share it, bonus entry for you. Closes the 1st of November, so that's just as we record the next episode. So you got a couple of weeks to get your entries in, and then after that, we've got a little special treat for our supporters. So we won't say too much about that yet, but in Sugar Snags' word, it's a doozy little outcome. So,
mate, secret squirrels, baby. You got to keep
secret
that on lockdown.
squirrels. But boys, let's jump into the podcast, and with a boy that's a little more nervous than usual.
Mate, right? Just to give the listeners, we done the intro. It took me about 7 times because I'm extremely nervous about the lie detector.
Several times.
Yeah, got it. There you go. It's also in one of my segments later, Craig. Leave it with me.
Boys, let's jump into the last edition of Lie Detector.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the most touted segment that's ever been on this podcast, created by yours truly, Sugar Snags. And he's going to hand the reins over to the boys this week, which he's a tiny bit nervous about after he's put him on blast for the last 3 podcasts. Sorry. So I've been shipped the lie detector stuff. I've obviously put it on because I am truthful to my word, as per usual. And I'm going to hand the rein over to the boys to ask Snags some questions that, happy to answer truthfully, happy to show the fans what they want. So, boys, fire away.
Snags, well, thanks for participating because we're a little bit nervous. We thought if anyone's got anything in the cupboard, it's old Sugar Snags. So we thought the lie detector might bring out the worst or might bring out the best of Sugar Snags. Let's start off nice and easy, boys, and let's just make sure that machine is in good working order because it has been around the block a little bit. Snags, let's start nice and easy, mate.
Let's roll, baby. I'm ready to go.
Is it true, Sugar Snags, that you are a 4-stripe white belt?
That is extremely true.
Excellent. Good. Well, everything seems to be working.
It's in order. Yep.
Are you happy with that, Stoney?
Yeah, really comfortable so far.
Statman,
I would say an underrated 4-stripe white belt, but yes, 4 stripes, that is.
Yeah, it's trying to confuse the machine already and talk more than he needs to. So that's fine. Just yes or no, mate. Okay, question 1 from producer DL. Snags. Did producer DL give you $300 at the start of a night as a reimbursement? Then I quote, I'll leave this cash here so I don't spend it. Then borrow additional $300 from the producer several hours later.
True.
Very good. Very good. I like it. Sugar Snags. Is it true that once, while you were in regional Victoria city of Bendigo, you challenged a local patron to a competition who had the bigger calves?
And that is firmly true, and I still stand by my word that I would have absolutely taken the calf trophy home for the boys.
Hi Snags, it's the stat man here.
I introduced you before. But
Yeah,
that's
no,
fine.
I
Continue
just, I just figured that it'd be nice if we dropped like the familiarity, and because this is an interview, so hold on to your hats, Snags.
Okay, let's
so,
roll.
question 1, Snags, is it true that you intentionally pick the worst possible fighters each and every card so that the boys can have a win?
That is correct. I do it also for the lols for the fans.
Sorry.
What?
Yeah, I honestly, it's just because you're terrible at this. So, Snags, question 2. Is it true that you are 1-0 in unsanctioned grappling matches out the front of the Colonial Brewing Company?
That is very true. Yeah.
The story
That was a quick sub too.
real quick.
Alrighty, Snags. From unsanctioned to sanctioned. This is a 2-part question.
Okay.
Is it true that you once finished 3rd in a BJJ grappling event?
That is true.
Is it also true that there were only 3 competitors in your bracket that day, meaning that your bronze medal was actually a consolation prize for finishing dead last?
Before I answer correct or incorrect, it was in the no-gi absolute class, and both the other blokes were about 120 kilos. So yes, that's correct. The picture confirms it as well.
Very honest. I'm impressed
Yeah.
by him. Last one from me, Sugar Snags. Is it true that your downfall on the Run It Back leaderboard is more disgraceful than the downfall of Lance Armstrong in professional cycling?
That's a good question. I would say no, because I haven't actually used any performance enhancing drugs, or I haven't paid for any picks.
Well, I think the lesson here is maybe you should. If you get that opportunity, maybe you should take that up. If you're not willing to go too far, Sugar Snags, you will never go far enough.
Which one? I said the perform enhancing drugs or the picks. Which one should I be taking?
Both.
Contradicting yourself with me subbing someone in 3 seconds and then telling me I need performance enhancing drugs. Unacceptable.
Well done, Snags.
Thanks, boys.
I think you
I
got.
only got like 1 or 2 wrong.
I think
didn't
you got through pretty unscathed.
Yeah, agreed. I thought it was actually going to be a lot more firmer than that one. So, boys, thanks for letting me off the hook.
Now you can just relax. Now we can get the old Sugar Snags back for the rest
I
of the
feel
body.
good now. I feel good. And
Yeah,
do you know
don't be
what?
so
Now that I feel good, I feel like I need to make an announcement to the boys as well and to the listeners. So, boys, now the lie detector's over, I've decided to hang up my hat as a detective, hang up my hat as a law enforcer, and I'm going to go down another route, boys. I've decided to become an author. I'm going to start writing some books. So next fortnight on the podcast, I'm going to launch 2 of my books that I'm writing. So I've got one book's called 52 Things I Learned as an Award-Winning Podcaster. That's right. I said award-winning. So as we know, the podcast's been going for well over a year now. So I'll just be giving the listeners a bit of background in terms of what I've learnt as an award-winning co-host. And if anyone out there wants to start their own podcast, they can listen to it from there. Then I'm also launching my second book, thinking about a kid's book. It's called The ABC of MMA. So we'll be going through the alphabet of MMA as well. So Snags is looking forward to taking people like Stoney along that don't know their alphabet and helping him out. So I'm ready to roll. Boys, best-selling author, here we come.
Perfect timing, guys, to jump into Hot Take. Jimmy Crute was ruthless with his first round KO. Are we seeing next big thing in Australian MMA?
Look, I would say two-part answer to that, yes. But also we're seeing a rise in Australian MMA as well. You think about the fighters that we've got out there at the moment. We've got a couple that we're going to talk about on the potty today. But Jimmy Crute, for me, yes, definitely is going to be one of the next big hitters in his division, and I look forward to see what his next fight is.
Absolutely. Took the words out of my mouth. Is he going to be the next big thing? Look, I'm not sure if he's going to be the best next thing out of Australian MMA, but certainly he has a bright future and one of the big things coming out of our country.
One of the things they constantly highlighted on the broadcast was how young Jimmy Crute is. He's only 24 years old. I really, really think that he's got a bright future ahead of him.
And we head to the listeners' poll. 92% said yes, and only 8% said no. So Jimmy Crute, come on down. Andrade called out Shevchenko after feeding the chook on Fight Island 6. Is Andrade now a real threat for Shevchenko?
Look, if you can beat a chook, you can beat anyone, but I would say that's a firm no from Sugar Snags. Shevchenko's too strong, too powerful, and just will outclass her, in my opinion. But I'd love to see Shevchenko back in the octagon, and if it's against anyone but the chook, I'm happy.
Look, I think the key word is real threat. Is she a real threat for Shevchenko? I'd say no, but is she the real deal and deserving of that next shot? I'd say yes.
I think Andrade is probably the best bet against Shevchenko. I don't think I'd take that bet, but I do think that in a relatively thin division after Shevchenko's been through it, Andrade is fresh blood.
And hot take listener poll has Jessica Andrade 31% yes, no 69%. So Shevchenko dominant. Moving over to Bellator, Chris Cyborg got her first submission win, unfortunately against Australia's Irene Bellacro, and moved to 23-2, remaining dominant in the sport. So hypothetically, for the fight that never happened, who would you take, peak Ronda versus peak Cyborg, round and finish?
Oh, God, this didn't go in the hot take. I didn't read that part. Jesus. Look, boys, I would take Ronda for a couple of reasons. One, I just think pinnacle of the sport when she was on fire, and it would be a banging match, and I'd love to see it. But I would say Ronda round 1 submission, just for fun.
Yeah, well, look, I would go firmly the opposite on that one. I know it wasn't peak Ronda that fought Amanda Nunes. I don't know if it was we didn't see her at her peak, or we just saw a flaw that a lot of people had thought for a while, that a high-level striker would really walk through Ronda Rousey, and that's exactly what we saw. I think, yeah, peak Cyborg is a different beast. I think the question, peak Cyborg versus peak Nunes, that's a really fascinating one. But I've got Cyborg round 1 against peak Ronda.
I'd be really interested to see how this would shape out at different weight classes. Obviously, if Cyborg is killing herself to get down to 135, it could change the outcome of the fight significantly. I'm going to go peak Rousey as the Rousey that defeated Miesha Tate in the third fight. And I think that Cyborg was at her peak when Gina Carano managed to take it down. If Gina Carano can manage to take it down, Ronda Rousey can manage to take it down and get the submission. So I'm taking round 2 submission for Ronda Rousey.
I'm just a bit concerned how many times we said the word peak in that hot take. I am peaking from it. Let's go to the next one. Oh, no, let's go to listeners' deal.
Hot take listeners poll has Cyborg 67% and Rousey 33%. So pretty strong.
Didn't think that.
Pretty strong leaning towards Cyborg. A little older news, but 4 weeks ago, One Championship signed 16-year-old Victoria Lee, sister of atomweight champion Angela Lee, brother of Christian Lee, who's a lightweight champion in One Championship. But boys, do you have an issue with the age when it comes to MMA? And do you think we'll see more of this in other promotions?
I don't have an issue with the age yet. She hasn't been signed for an actual fight, correct me if I'm wrong. She's been signed to the promotion, and as if you wouldn't sign her, if you've looked through the stats, she's an absolute prodigy of the sport. I'm going to take a little bit of a leaf from Statman's book here, but boys, let me just run you through, right? BJJ skills, 15-time expert champ in the North American region. She's a high school state wrestling champion in Hawaii, 2-time world junior champ and 1-time youth champ in BJJ as well. And then you just talk about her pedigree in terms of her brother and sister, and that's a prodigy in the making, my friend. So sign away, and it'll be interesting to see when she starts fighting.
Yeah, 100%. The key there is she's not signed to fight. And I think if you look at a completely different sport but similar principle, world football, you see teams like FC Barcelona signing kids as young as 8 into their youth academies. Now, obviously, they're not going to play a game for a good 12 plus years, but it just goes to show that you can nurture this talent. So if One Championship think they're onto an absolute winner, then, I'd love to see more of this. Get in nice and early and then nurture, develop, and then bring them in. But that's the critical part, DL, how you phase them into the competition.
Stoney hit the nail on the head there. He took pretty much the words out of my mouth with the football analogy. If you've got a really, really exciting up-and-coming fighter and you can sign them early, why wouldn't you? Why, if you could provide them with the growth opportunity to learn and train, so when they are old enough, when they're 18 or 19, and ready to compete in MMA professionally, you can do that. If she was competing in professional fights at 16, I think that would probably be a bit too soon. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be the case.
Hot Take listener poll has it at 56% being yes and no 44%. So I think a few other people were thinking along the same lines as the boys. That was Hot Take. Boys, we're going to jump into a leaderboard update, but first, Statman's just going to run us through the results of the last two cards.
Perfect. So we headed to UFC Fight Island 5. We had Marcin Tybura defeated Ben Rothwell by unanimous decision. Edson Barbosa defeated Makwan Amirkhani by unanimous decision. And Corey Sandhagen defeated Marlon Moraes by TKO in the second round. And then we switched over to UFC on Fight Island 6. This one we changed up. We only picked 2 fights on this card. We actually ended up slotting in an extra pick. The fights that we picked for: James Krause defeated Claudia Silva by unanimous decision. Jessica Andrade defeated Caitlin Chukagian by TKO. And Brian Ortega defeated Chen Sung Yang by unanimous decision.
The first weekend, producer Dio had a clean sweep.
Congrats, mate. Honestly, you
That was a
it.
pretty impressive thing there.
And I'm talking about myself in the third person, really taking on the sugar snags there.
Jesus.
So I got 5 in that first week. Snags had a shocker. He got 1. Along with Statman, he got 1. Stoney got 2. So in that first weekend, after changing hands, Stoney actually got 1 back on the Statman, which was interesting. Then the next card wasn't so great. I went from 5 to 1. That leaving me with 63 points. Snags went to 2, so he got 1 back. So he got 56.
I think you just need to say Snags 1, Fight Island 6, baby. Yeah.
So it's 56. So still running in that 4th spot. So DL's in the 3rd spot. And the boys got ever so close. So Stoney with the 1 got 65. So 3 over the 2 cards. Statman just the 2 over the new card, over the 2 cards. And still the Statman holding on to it. Well done, mate. How'd you feel?
Thank you. Yeah, I had a few drinks before the last podcast, and I was like, you know what would be fun? Just give Stoney the chance to get close to the gold again. Not quite let him touch it, but just get close to it. The guy held the belt for so long. You know, it felt wrong to like streak ahead of him immediately. That one's for you, Stoney. But from here on out, it's a clear road ahead.
He's confident, that lad, isn't he?
I don't think he is. That strikes me as the most
Yeah, that was
flawed
poor
confidence that I've
last week.
ever heard, DL. I'm not buying that for 1 second.
I like it.
Look, as Al Pacino says, in any given Sunday, it's a game of inches, and that is enough to make the Statman insecure. So bring it on, baby.
You both know a lot about inches. But anyway, let's roll on.
Couple of little starting points. That fight, Zombie Ortega. First crazy part of that fight was Ortega shaved his head, and social media went nuts about the haircut, which took a little bit of hype off the fight. And the second part was weird because Ortega was a different fighter than the last time we seen him out there. So that was crazy. Boys, thoughts on that?
Boys, look, I'll just jump in first because I called it. I was thinking I was the only one on the body to call it. Did everyone else tip Zombie just before we proceed?
Zombie for me.
Sometimes you just got to look a man in the eye, look Sugar Snags in the eye, and you got to trust him, okay? You got to trust him on his picks because I knew my boy T-City was coming back a different man. And as you could see, not just a jiu-jitsu fighter anymore, come back well-rounded. The thing I loved about him in that fight, he was patient. When you think about it previously, he's kind of got into a mode of maybe rushing when he gets little bit behind, but he was patient through all 5 rounds. He was just ready to grind it out. So for me, well fought fight from my boy T-City. And now I'm just real nervous because I've got to pick between Volk and T-City in the future, and the boys doing me dirty, so I don't know how I'm going to do that. But loved every second of it. Loved the win too, boys. Congratulations, Snags.
Look, honestly, if we had spoken about this last week, DL, Volk and Ortega, it would have been a very easy decision. But I don't know. Bald Ortega is a different beast. I liked it. So
Bold Ortega.
Yeah, I think on the last podcast I did actually say the Korean Zombie matchup excited me more, but not after watching that Ortega.
no, not at all.
He was that man was just standing with the Zombie the whole time and taking, well, he put a lot more damage on Zombie than he got himself, but
heaps.
just incredible.
The worry then is obviously if Ortega is going to be so proficient in striking against Volkanovski, you can easily say, yeah, Volk will just take him down. But then you forget Ortega's ground game is like it's his main game. So Volk might be in trouble. I was a little bit disappointed with Korean Zombie's approach to the fight. Obviously, he's a bit more of a counter striker, and I think Ortega's patience really, really threw him off. And you could kind of see that Korean Zombie was more waiting for Ortega to come at him and maybe had prepped and game planned for a rush from Ortega. So I went from being disappointed in Korean Zombie's performance to just being impressed by Ortega's.
Yeah, it was an excellent little round out, and I think it was really cool to see how humble he was at the end, and every conversation they had about Alex Volkanovski. It was a really encouraging conversation. Like, they've had some really decent conversations, and he's checked in on him and all that sort of stuff. So there was some really positive words, and that doesn't take it away from the fight because we know what Alex is like as a bloke, and I think that'll be a matchup that should look pretty good early next year, I'd say. So crowds would be back.
They're saying Feb.
Mate, Feb would be good. Somewhere in Australia would be even nicer.
Are they thinking Australia? Like you'd have to think that Australia with
the safest place in the world.
The current goings on, we should be okay to host a UFC event with crowds. If they want crowds, if they want gate, come to Australia.
Look, I hope it comes to fruition, boys. That's for sure.
Very good, Snags. And Snags, we want to highlight a couple of Aussies that are coming up soon.
Yeah, I thought I'd just shout out to the boys. Obviously, Aussie podcast, so we should continue to support our fellow Aussie fighters. We got Chelsea Hackett, who's been on the potty before, boys. She's got a fight on the Contender Series coming up with Jamie Lynn Horse Wessels, longest name in the world. She's currently 4-0 though, so should be an interesting fight, boys. Any research? Thinking how you going?
Now, just before this podcast, we started recording, like literally 10 minutes beforehand. Chelsea Hackett did post on her Instagram, "Wow, I hate all these fighters pulling out of fights." Ooh. Thankful for a quick replacement, though. I don't know if Jamie Lynn Wessels is the replacement fighter.
No, she's not. That was the other night that I pulled that she was fighting her.
Yeah, so it must have been something very, very recent, which is unfortunate because I did a bit of research on Horth Wessels, but I'm not too sure. Yeah, I did. I'm not too sure who the replacement fighter is, but sorry to take some breaking news. I'm taking your championship and I'm taking some breaking news from you, Stoney. But it does appear that Chelsea Hackett has a new opponent.
Well, if you've been watching Chelsea's stories lately, I wouldn't fight her either. Like, absolutely insane.
God, no.
Absolutely insane. She's working on that power game.
Oh, we've got 3 weeks to that fight, boys, so it should be good. Next one on the list, we're going to talk a little bit about in the podcast a little bit later. Jacob Mamba Malkoon fighting out of Gracie Smeaton Grange in the Robert Whittaker camp. So he's on that Khabib card. He's just been promoted, I think, to the main card, boys. Nice. So he's fighting, from memory, Phil Horse, who's come out of the Contender Series, won his fight to get into the main card. So Jacob's 4-0 at the moment. If you boys haven't followed his career yet, 4-0 in MMA, 3-0 in boxing, ADCC Asian champ last year, and the 2019 Pan-Pacific gold medalist in Jiu-Jitsu as well. He's actually my young fella's Jiu-Jitsu coach when he used to train in Sydney as well. Just throwing that one out there, boys.
Nice.
He's going to get his black belt before you are, Snags.
No, unfortunately, he firmly quit. So he was 2 stripes in, baby.
Didn't get to them 4.
I didn't like that contact. He's playing soccer these days.
And anything else we want to add?
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about was basically the king of the late notice fights nowadays, James Krause, on a 7-1 run. He looked phenomenal. Obviously, Claudio Silva's performance maybe left a little bit to be desired in its own right, but James Krause came out, blew his knee out sometime in the first round, I believe, because he was complaining about it at the end of the first round, and he went on to win a pretty dominant performance. He's on a 7-1 run at the moment in the UFC, with his only loss coming by split decision on a fight that he took at a weight division up on a 1-day notice. So I think James Krause, he's got to be in Dana White's good books. Dana White loves a guy that can fill in on late notice. We call it the cowboy effect. So I'm really, really excited to follow James Krause. And James Krause has just called out Joaquin Buckley, owner of the best KO maybe in UFC history, that jumping, spinning back kick to the face of Impa.
It's crazy.
And I think there's some bad blood going on social media between the two of them, but that would be an incredible fight to watch.
Absolutely. That KO was ridiculous.
It was stupid. It was a stupid kick that if you saw it in a movie, you would say that is a bullshit kick that would never work. It's the Tekken kick. It's the kick that you think about doing in a dream. It is dumb and it shouldn't have worked, and it worked, and it was fucking amazing. I loved it.
That's cool.
That was better than your victory speech around getting number
I'm
one
actually
on the
confident
leaderboard.
about that knockout.
Jesus.
Call me out like that shit. Come on, guys.
That's
How
cool.
funny.
Boys, we might head into some predictions. Statman, do you want to kick us off? We do have a couple of Aussies featuring in this card.
Yeah, 3 Aussies on this card, which is very, very exciting. One on the prelims that we'll highlight just briefly. Heavyweight fight, Tuivasa versus Stefan Struve. We're not going to do picks for this fight, but obviously it's very, very exciting seeing fights. And I actually, it seems rude, really rude to use the term freak show fight, but anytime you have a 7-foot tall skyscraper in the octagon, it is exciting. And then coming up against Bam Bam Tuivasa, king of the shoeies, it is an interesting matchup. I'm very, very excited. Any thoughts on it, guys?
Look, I know we said we weren't doing picks, but Bam Bam for snags, baby. Gonna rep that Southwest Sydney, and hope he gets the win for the Aussie boys.
Yeah, look, I'd love to see Ty get the win. Statman or the boys, what do we think? This is one of those old-fashioned WWE lose or you're fired. I think
I thought he was already fired.
Stefan Struve is on he's had a lot of losses tallying up of late. I think off the top of my head, 1-5, maybe that might be incorrect.
Yeah,
but
he's had some issues with getting to fights as well. Obviously, not necessarily all of his fault, but so not necessarily in the company's good books there either.
No, and it all started out innocently enough at 175. I was actually over at Mandalay Bay. He withdrew about half an hour before a fight with Matt Mitrione due to an
Panic
irregular
attack,
heartbeat, I think they put it down to.
Yeah.
And since then, man, his career has just spiraled. Just before the podcast, we're talking about Stefan Struve. We won't spend too long on it, but he's someone who got a win over Stipe Miocic back in 2014. He had Big Nog, Bigfoot Silver. So he had some good wins under his belt, but boy, he looks a shell of himself now.
Yeah, I thought Tuivasa already lost his contract and then he was there.
It'll be an interesting fight. I do think it's definitely a loser leaves UFC. And I think we talked about it last podcast. Which fighter has the most to lose? Tuivasa at this point. It's put up or shut up, win this fight, or back to the regionals. Unfortunately, we'll head into the main card. We start off with a light heavyweight bout between Magomed, Ankalaev, and Ion Kudalaba. Ankalaev and Kudalaba met earlier this year, their first fight ending controversially with Kudalaba being stopped after appearing to fake being out on his feet in what I think I called in the group chat the worst stoppage in UFC history. It's not the only controversial stoppage loss on Kudalaba's record. In his fifth professional fight, Kudalaba ate a spinning back kick and heavy hands, nearly face planted and stumbled halfway across the cage. The referee stopped the fight before becoming confused that Kudalaba seemed to be perfectly okay. The fight was ruled a no contest due to referee error, despite being about 10 times more of a legitimate stoppage than the Ankalaev fight. So heading into this one, Ankalaev is a heavy favorite. He's got a fantastic pedigree. His fighting style is really, really conducive to knocking people out, take them where they want them. Kudalaba puts himself in danger, gets hit a lot, and has been knocked out before. Despite all that, I am taking Kudalaba in this one. I think the Hulk hits really hard. I love watching him fight because he is so unpredictable. It's the Huzamal Palhares, it's the Yoel Romero. You just don't know what you're going to see when he fights, but you know it's probably going to be something really bizarre. I'm taking Kudalaba in this one.
Yeah, look out. After 8 UFC appearances, I think a bit of a pattern has started to emerge for Kudalaba, and that is he's offensively dominant against lesser skilled opponents. I think this one is a different fight. With that in mind, I expect a really high-paced, a real action-packed match between these two, or fight between these two. But look, I think Ankalaev comes through with the TKO in this one. But boys, what's more important than my pick it's remiss of us just to gloss over the fact that we actually had one of our listeners reach out to the podcast this past week. A gentleman by the name of Zach Friedrich, and I hope I've pronounced that right, but he strikes me as someone who knows what's good, DL. He dropped a post on Twitter saying, "Let's make a bet, mates. If Stoney MMA beats Stats," not even the stat man, just Stats.
You got a new nickname.
Disrespect.
The disrespect.
I wouldn't have replied to that DM because he said stats. I went on
Capital T, capital S, Statman, please.
Stats. No respect whatsoever to the stat man, which is what I loved. If at Stoney MMA beats Stats with his picks this week, I get to come onto the podcast. DL, do you want to run us through the negotiations for this little friendly wager with one of the listeners?
Yeah, I said no. But
Mate, you got to give the listeners what they want.
I haven't finished yet. I said no, and then I said, look, if this does actually happen, Stoney beats the stat man, I will give him his own segment on the next Run It Back podcast.
Oh, shit, that's pretty big.
His own segment. So I don't know what he'll come up with, but we'll get him on the potty.
Do I earn double points if I beat Stoney? Like, what's my victory
Not
here?
negotiating with you.
Hey, the
as
only
well.
person that gets double points on this podcast is me because I'm coming dead last. Thank you very much, and you all know it.
Look at him. He's in the lead by 1 and already fishing for double points. That speaks volumes to that confidence, DL.
But the producer has ticked this off. It's okay.
So it's head-to-head, Stoney and the Statman, as it is every podcast, but this one with a little bit of extra zest with a special guest appearance on the podcast at stake. So, Zach, I look forward to having you on the podcast in the not-too-distant future, buddy.
What's your pick, mate?
Yeah, what's your pick?
I went Magomed.
Yeah, come on, mate. Zach's waiting for you to pick.
Magomed by TKO. Done.
Statman's rattled. He missed it. Boys, I'm lost in this matchup. So they had that fight in Feb, that weird fight in Feb, and then they had a COVID cancellation. That's what it was?
I think they've had 3 cancellations.
Yeah, it's been on and off and on and off.
So maybe he was in trouble in that fight. I don't know. Like, who knows? So I think it probably goes the same way, but in a clear knockout. I will be taking Ankalaev.
Yeah, I'm going to take Magomed as well, and I can pronounce it because the Snags is on fire tonight. Not at the start of the podcast. I'm going to look. I think from the first fight, he was getting up in his grill. When you think about it, he was getting hot-handed and pretty heavy. I did think, as everyone was ended pretty early, but hopefully we see some fireworks. I think there's some bad blood considering it, and 3 cancelled fights can only equal a good one at the end, from my view. So hoping to bring back some points.
Perfect. So we head into the middleweight division with one of our Australian fighters, Jacob Malkoon, versus Phil Hawes. Jacob Malkoon was due to fight for one of Australia's top titles, the Brace Light Heavyweight Championship, in only his second professional fight at Brace 53. However, after weigh-ins, the event was shut down by the ACT government due to incorrectly submitted medical clearances. It was the second time that Brace 53 was cancelled or delayed, and the promotion's next event, Brace 54, was likewise cancelled. The promotion never held another event, with the promoter's Twitter account being deleted, and pay disputes between the fighters and the promotion for the cancelled events eventually signalling the end to one of Australia's most well-known promotions. Heading into this fight, all I need to know is watching the tape. So we checked out the Eternal fights that Jacob Malkoon had on UFC Fight Pass. Phil Hawes, as Snags mentioned earlier, has been on Dana White Contender Series. Jacob Malkoon is only 4-0 as a professional. However, that is mostly due to the fact that the Australian regional scene has not been touching this man. Won't go near him because he is such an adept fighter. Having watched him, I will take Jacob Malkoon quite comfortably in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Jacob Malkoon, not only skilled MMA fighter, but also 3 and zip in professional boxing as well. Stand-up, not his only forte. He's also a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which means he would handily tag Snags any day, which is always welcome. So I would love to see that happen one day. What really got me across the line, Malkoon's one of Rob Whittaker's main training partners, and this one really sold it for me. Rob said he belongs in there. He just hasn't been given a chance yet, but once he breaks in there, no one's going to get him out. Trust me. He's the next biggest thing in the UFC. Trust me. And Rob Whittaker, if there's any man in the UFC I trust, it is Bobby Knuckles. So Jacob Malkoon for me as well.
Yeah, I'm taking the Aussie as well. I love the fact that he does come from the Reaper camp. And Greatest seems to really follow people in MMA. If they're in that camp and they're in a close camp, they really do come up together. You can really see someone succeed. if it's anything in life, if you surround people with the same passions and drive you, you're more likely to be successful. So I think the Aussie will get this done.
Look, Queen Sleep for the Potty Boys. I'm going to take Jacob as well. I think that camp's looking like it's about to explode. There's probably one or two other blokes from seeing them around the traps and also just seeing a couple of fights from Eternal and whatnot, and then just how they train that are going to probably burst on the scene pretty soon. So seeing Jacob's last fight on Eternal, I forget what card it was on, but it was an absolute dominant performance. Mate, I'm really looking for him to getting on the big stage and hopefully getting a win for the camp and for the boys as well. So let's go, baby.
Clean sweep. I love it. Heading into the heavyweight division, Alexander Volkov versus Walt Harris. Alexander Volkov holds victories over an IFL champion, a Bellator champion, a King of the Cage champion, a World Series of Fighting champion, and 2 UFC champions, currently sitting atop his record. Heading into this fight, Walt Harris, I was very, very big on before his fight with Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem showed a very good restraint in that fight, surprised me with his patience, and eventually took the fight by TKO. That is the game plan for Alexander Volkov. Volkov is a dangerously accurate striker. Before his most recent fight, I believe was against Curtis Blades, had one of the top striking accuracies in UFC history, not just heavyweight history, in history at all. In this fight, I am still taking Walt Harris. I think Walt Harris's striking power outweighs Alexander Volkov's striking accuracy. I don't see this fight being too dissimilar from the Derek Lewis fight. I think Volkov should get the better of him with technical striking, but I think Walt Harris will eventually land something on Volkov, who hasn't shown the same power as most other heavyweights.
Yeah, look, certainly not going to argue with any of that, except I am going against the stat man. Zach and I have liaised extensively this past week, DL, and we're really confident with this one. Big fans of Volkov. Love that karate/kickboxing style. You look at his record, and obviously Curtis Blades isn't one of your fondest fighters, DL, and I can see you shaking your head just at the mere mention of that man's name. But he obviously got a unanimous decision against Volkov. But before that, Statman pointed out Derek Lewis was a KO, but he had a long string of
last
victories.
10 seconds, I think, as well.
A long string of victories, and I'm backing him. He's got some good names in there. Fabricio Verdum, Stefan Struve, the powerhouse, the skyscraper. But no, Volkov, we think he's going to get this one done. We're not picking finishes, are we?
You can say one if you want.
Look, I think it's be a decision for Volkov, to be honest. But yeah, if we're not picking decisions or finishes, let's just roll on with it, boys.
Cool. Well, I was really impressed with Walt's last start until the Ream stopped him in his tracks. He faded quickly after that, so I'm going to take the big Russian. I'm struggling with Russians, actually. Like, they're really disappointing me.
Oh, don't even start me.
For those that know, it hurts me.
We can just talk about it. We can talk about it. I think I need a counselling session.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Fuck the small butt.
Mate, the run has been terrible, hasn't it? I am firmly it's been almost as bad as my picks on this podcast.
Mate, the last 2 weekends have been not good for the boys after having a couple of very profitable weekends. Sorry, Frank.
His name's Dylan, but no, it's not. It's Frank.
And it's your pick.
Oh, is it? I thought you haven't went done yet. Sorry. I'm going to go Volkov as well, of course. I just want to get one back for DL over Curtis Blades because I know he's just firmly against him after that night. But I think the record speaks for itself. I know he had a loss last match against Curtis Blades, but I think with the caliber that he's fought and the amount of wins that he's had, I think he's going to get this one done. So Volk for snags, and hopefully the Russians just they keep coming for winners for me because I'm sick of losing in the table tennis and disappointing the boys in the group chat. So Volkov into Roman into Igor, and that's a parlay that you want, boys.
Boys, I think it's time for a little break, and let's jump into some news.
Breaking news with Stoney.
Boys, it's another big UFC card, and with that comes the fight week drama. Every time there is a much anticipated fight, you hold your breath, or we collectively hold our breath, and think, let's just hope all goes well during fight week. News broke late last night that Umar Nurmagomedov is out of his fight in the prelims with what was a serious flu, fever, and chills. Now, where this became a little bit relevant is Umar had obviously been a big part of Khabib's camp for the past 3 months, which momentarily put the Khabib and Justin Gaethje fight in some serious jeopardy when the news just broke. However, boys, I'm reassured that according to Khabib's management, Umar's fever has been caused by a staph infection and not a flu. So the main event is still full steam ahead, boys, so we can breathe easy on that one. But that one certainly made me hold my breath for a good hour until some clarification come through on the Twitter sphere. In other news, the UFC's Welsh contingent just got a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper with the addition of the 2-division Cage Warriors champion, Mason Jones. Now, the boys will remember the notorious Conor McGregor coming across as a 2-division dual double champ from Cage Warriors. So we've got another young up-and-comer, Mason Jones. Following in the footsteps, he's just been signed to the UFC. No fight as of yet, but looks a serious up-and-comer and one to keep an eye on, boys. So watch this space.
My big thing, Stoney, is you seem awfully upbeat for someone who is announcing that one of Khabib's closest training partners in a grappling-heavy camp has staph infection. That to me is absolutely god-awful news because staph infection is obviously ridiculously contagious. Obviously, we were thinking that it was
COVID.
Could be COVID with the flu and everything like that. Staph infection, as far as MMA competitors, is hardly much better. It's terrifying, and I would say that while the likelihood is that the event will go on as planned, a staph infection running through camp in a grappling-heavy training camp is about as bad news as you can get at this stage.
Look, I firmly disagree.
And I'm so glad that Sugar Snacks has jumped in, and I'll just let him take the floor.
Do you know what? If I had the choice between grappling men all day long and getting staph and getting COVID, I'd probably choose the grappling, baby. That's for sure. So, game on.
Oh, God.
I've had staph once or twice. Not very fun, by the way.
Super contagious and fucks with your immune system. You can't fight with a staph infection.
Well, untrue. So many fighters have fought with that. So just to correct that, many fighters have. But Sugar Snacks, I'll jump to someone of expertise in this area. How long from point of contraction does it usually take for a staph infection to not only surface but also start fucking with the immune system?
I don't know. I got mine playing footy. Hey, I went through a run of a year where I got like 4 or 5 of them, and it fucking killed. And the worst place I got them, is the weirdest place, was in my underarm, and I had to get it cut to like get it
hot
to come
and
out.
Damp and yeah.
Holy dooly,
Probably
baby! That was.
friend.
Can you imagine getting needled in your arm to numb your bloody armpit? Holy shit! It was the worst pain I've ever been through. Did
you find that it affected your fitness at all, Stags, or were you pretty fine?
Oh mate, I was playing Reggie's then. I was fucking well blown out. No fitness for me in those years.
Boys, I'm standing by it. I still think it's a much better outcome than the alternative, which would have all but sealed the fate that this would just be another failed UFC card, and we certainly don't want that given the level of anticipation going into Khabib and Justin. This is a fight that I really want to see, even more so. And, you know, MMA Twitter may kill me for this, but even more so than Khabib and Tony Ferguson. Obviously, we were really keen on that one. But after seeing what Justin did to Tony, I don't think I've ever been about a Khabib fight. Almost, you know, bar maybe the Conor McGregor fight. This is the biggest fight that I've almost anticipated Khabib fight that I've certainly, been looking forward to.
Briefly touching on Mason Jones, really, really impressive run that he's had in the Cage Warriors. Cage Warriors consistently producing some of the best talent in the UK and Europe as a whole. So very, very excited to see anyone who can hold a championship in that promotion. Really, really excited to see them get into the UFC. What I would like from the UFC ideally is to slow build. He's only quite young, so he's only like mid-20s. I would love to see them slow build him up until he's 28, 29, and then sky's the limit basically for this guy.
Just say he's an Irish lad or a Welsh lad?
Welsh.
Get around the Welsh lads.
The Welsh Dragon.
Boys, should we jump back into our predictions? We've got 2 fights to go.
Let's head into it. We've got the co-main event with the middleweight division. The other Australian boy on this card, Robert Whittaker versus Jarrod Cannonier. When digging into the stats, something became quite clear to me. Jarrod Cannonier is actually quite a bit older than I thought he would be, and Robert Whittaker is quite a bit younger than I thought he was. So I started digging into the age of the opponents. Robert Whittaker has actually never faced an opponent younger than him in the UFC, including his stint on The Ultimate Fighter. Every fighter he's faced pre-UFC that I could find that has an identifiable date of birth returned the same result. 29-year-old fighter has been in the game since he was 18. It looks likely that he's never faced a younger opponent, and that's the same true here with Jarrod Cannonier. Heading into this fight, I kind of had to take my bias cap off and look at the reality of the situation. Jarrod Cannonier in the middleweight division hits like a fucking truck. Hit Anderson Silva hard, hit all of his middleweight opponents hard. Robert Whittaker, sturdy, strong bloke, has been knocked down and has been finished. Yoel Romero did a number on his chin. Israel Adesanya maybe put the nail in the coffin of his chin. Obviously, he took Darren Till, took some hard shots from Darren Till, who hits hard. But I think that Jarrod Cannonier, as far as one punch power in the middleweight division, hits harder than anyone else currently active. Very disappointed to say, boys, but I'm taking Jarrod Cannonier in this one. If we're picking round and finish, I'm going for a round 2 TKO.
What?
No, that's a big one, but not a silly one, if I'm being honest, boys. I'm loving the fact that how this is panning out because we collectively, Zach and myself, we're not going Jarrod Cannonier, but I don't just
You stop taking my picks and you take someone else's.
Oh, so it's gone in. Another load of the Youngin boys.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Cannonier's power is frightening. But I think you can read a lot about a fighter's character in how they bounce back from adversity. And I was a little bit nervous / unsure on what we're going to see from Rob Whittaker in the Darren Till fight. And I walked away nothing but impressed. Enough for me to look back at that Israel Adesanya fight and say that was a blip on a fairly unblemished radar up until that point. Not saying that that result would change if they fought again, but I don't think it's damaged Rob Whittaker's stocks as much as what he possibly could have, just based on how he bounced back against Darren Till. So I'm going Bobby Knuckles with a round 3 TKO in this one.
So I talked about this before when we were talking about Malkoon, like being on the same card and being like it's nearly like a city kickboxing feel where you've got those boys coming up together on the same card and training partner. I just think that's going to have a little bit of extra to it. And if Malkoon can get up, I think it's going to give Bobby Knuckles a little bit of extra. I mean, Cannonier is an absolute beast, and like Izzy's obviously looking him already. So I'm going to stick with the Reaper. I'd love to see Rob get up, but the thing that I don't like is I actually don't like a Rob Whittaker Izzy 2, which if Rob wins, I think that's the most natural progression for that.
Has to be.
For that division.
Has to be, yeah.
So it's a bit of a weird one, but I'm going to go with my guts here. Rob, second round, TKO.
Look, Snag won't be one to back down, boys. I'm going Whittaker as well. I think Bobby Knuckles will come back and get the victory. I'm excited about an Izzy too, to be honest. So I'm hoping he gets a victory and we can run that one back. No pun intended, gentlemen. But I'm going to say Whittaker by round 3 TKO, and I hope he gets it done and gets it done cleanly.
To be honest, boys, I'd be taking the loss. I would ideally hope Robert Whittaker wins. I just have some worries. How about we head in?
Trying to protect the leaderboard, aren't you?
Maybe. How about we head into the main event, guys?
It's time!
We've got a lightweight championship bout between Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje went 16-0 in professional MMA with only 2 decisions in that stretch, while also being legally blind in one of his eyes. His vision was so bad, his opponents were, as he described, out-of-focus silhouettes that he had to touch to see, which maybe explains his fighting style, until a successful eye procedure gave him 20/20 vision in 2018. This fight's a really, really interesting one for one of the reasons that is maybe not touched on so much. Justin Gaethje is a phenomenal wrestler, and not just a phenomenal wrestler, he's a phenomenal folk-style wrestler. The main difference between the two of them, Justin Gaethje explained, is that freestyle wrestlers get penalized if a grappler takes your back, whereas folk-style, you can give up your back and not get points taken off you, so you can use it to scramble. You were given points for getting up off your back, whereas freestyle wrestlers who Khabib has faced his entire career are content to just lay in guard and get stood up by the ref. Justin Gaethje is an expert scrambler. The only issue with that is Justin Gaethje has admitted several times wrestling makes him tired. Khabib does not get tired. I see this fight going much the same way as many previous Khabib fights. You go into the fight saying this fighter might be able to push Khabib, and then by round 3, the fighter is looking up at the camera for the very first time saying, I can't get this guy off me. I can't stop this onslaught. The sweat beating down, the hair hanging in their face in a way that you haven't seen. Khabib breaks people. I see this fight going the full 25. I'm taking Khabib Nurmagomedov by decision. I think Justin Gaethje is very, very difficult to put away, but I think that the cardio and I think that the grappling advantage is just so great in this fight. So I'm taking Khabib by decision.
Hold on, boys. DL's internet connection is just running a bit slow, waiting for Zach to just text me who we're going in this one. I kid. We actually had a contingency in place because I'm going exactly the same as the stat man with his prediction. If everything had been all square heading into this fight, we would have predicted the finish a little bit differently. But Justin Gaethje, obviously heavily credentialed wrestler, NCAA Division 1. He's a very good striker. I think Khabib's faced better strikers, but has he fought someone with the complete package of striking and wrestling? Possibly not. But that said, I still don't think that changes much in terms of the outcome and how this fight goes. I don't see it being a finish. I see this one being a fairly drawn out. Would not surprise me if this goes a little bit similar to the LI Quinta fight, which was obviously a short notice from LI Quinta, who jumped in to replace Max Holloway, who had jumped in to replace, refresh my memory, Stepman?
I believe it was
Tony Ferguson. It was, absolutely.
Yeah,
so
one of the 5 times that fight got cancelled.
I can remember we watched LI Quinta and everyone was a little bit surprised how well, and I say that in inverted commas, that LI Quinta did. He still lost every single round, and I think that will be much the same as this fight, that Justin, you know, he might stuff a few takedowns, he might land a few shots, but ultimately I don't think he wins a round, and I think this is a one-sided unanimous decision for Khabib and Still.
Can you really tip against Khabib? That's the thing that I'm wrestling with. I think if this was a Ferguson or a Conor fight, I probably wouldn't hesitate. But a Gaethje just has me a little bit intrigued. Gaethje's a weird bloke. Like, he just loves it. He loves it. When in his last fight, when he's sitting on the thing and he's just like, how am I going? And he just says, I'm sweet. Like, that was the best part. Khabib's too good at this sport. He knows how to play it. He's got a cardio for days. Can't see him getting beaten. I think it's going to be a decision, though. So I think it's going to go all 5 rounds. It's going to be a crazy fight. Khabib, decision.
Gaethje, round 2 TKO, baby. That's all I've got to say.
Oh, look out.
What are you fucking
That's all I've got to
nuts?
say.
Look out.
No comment after that.
Shutting it down. Well, boys,
Fuck, man.
that rounds out our predictions. And we're coming to the end of the podcast. And we're going to close it out with a bit of Run It Back Punters Club. Boys, we're 0-4.
So brutal. Such a brutal way to introduce that segment.
We're desperate here, boys. I need you to pull it together for this one. We need to get some money in this bank. So we've come all the way around back to me again. So I'm your $10 investor for this week. So I will kick off the leg. But what I thought I'd do is just relive our last episode's multi with mixed results. So we had the esports win, League of Legends. Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was. League of Legends World Championships. I'm sorry, guys.
That was our first leg and it failed. Leg 2, safety car at the German Grand Prix. There was a safety car. There was a number of safety cars. So that got over the line.
Get it.
Miami Dolphins, plus 8.5. That I don't think it got the line, did it? Did they win? They won.
Yeah.
Did they get the line, though?
Yeah.
Yep.
Back it up.
That's it. Leg 3 in the bag. Peter Wright. I actually didn't check how Peter Wright went. Did he get up?
Oh, I don't know. I was waiting for you to tell me. I lost interest after we lost on bloody League of Legends.
We don't know how Peter Wright was, but we were pretty confident that Peter Wright probably got up. So
I'll have a look while the boys
have a
put
look
it in
up.
there.
Leg 1 for today. What do you got?
Can I just correct? The Miami Dolphins stitched up San Fran 49ers 43-17. Not only did they, because we had an 8.5.
Yeah, we had 8.5.
buffer,
Yeah.
So we stitched that one up by just a lazy 51 points.
Cleared it. All right, boys. So I'm going to kick us off leg one. Me and Stoney have come to a gentleman's agreement this week. So we're not betting on the AFL Grand Final. Our teams are playing. So in good faith, I'm heading to the NRL and I'm taking the Storm. I think they're $1.72.
Yeah, they've gone in favourites.
They've gone in favourites.
It's actually surprising. Penrith haven't lost a game in 16 weeks.
I was going to say Panthers have like a ridiculous run on them. They're coming in so hot into this grand final.
And looked vulnerable last week against the Bunnies.
Storm are a very safe bet. Pretty much they're the most consistent team in the NRL, but Panthers, man.
Do you reckon you would use the word consistent for 16 wins in a row?
Yeah, but what were they before that, mate?
It's pretty consistent.
Who? Penrith?
Yeah.
They've only lost one game all year.
Yeah. Melbourne Storm across championships.
Should I take the line?
No, just take the win.
Straight, bro.
You just said you want some money in the bank.
Oh,
don't confuse it even more.
Cool. Leg one, Melbourne Storm.
Stoney?
Boys, jumping over to the UK for a bit of English Premier League action. We're jumping on Crystal Palace at $2.50 to beat Fulham. Obviously, Fulham newly promoted to the Premier League. Haven't been that impressive at all whatsoever. So I think $2.50 on Palace to get the win. I think we'll back it in. Wilfred Zaha to score. Don't put that in the bet, but that's just my prediction.
Is that the one on Sunday, the 25th?
That's correct.
Locked in. So just to give the little boys an update, we're up to $4.37 for this multi. Statman.
Beautiful. I'm heading Monday 26th, Green Bay Packers at Houston, Texas. I'm taking the Green Bay Packers at $1.58. They've been my team ever since Madden 2002, when I just got given them as a team in a quick play match, and I was like, yeah, sure, these are my team, I guess. Brett Favre, he got me through some tough times, but, I reckon that they've got this one against the Texas.
Statman obviously didn't watch the NFL this weekend.
No, he didn't.
But carry on.
Not.
That's fine. No worry. Don't let
Jesus.
that sway you.
Holy shit.
Just for context,
Boys.
Aaron Rodgers hadn't thrown a pick for 167 passes and did 2 in a row. Terrible.
Which
Wasn't
means
2 in a row. Actually, it was
Which
2 out of
means,
3.
CL, that he's good to not throw a pick for another long time.
I like it.
Yeah. No, we're sweet. Good pick,
Good
Statman.
pick, Statman.
Thank you.
There you go. What are we at the moment?
We are at $6.91 if we boost it up at $7.64.
Look, Snags is gonna roll the dice, boys. By the way, just before we get it, Peter Wright got beat last week.
Oh, thank God it wasn't just on League of
well
Legends. Thank fuck for that. I would have been
He got
devastated.
rolled, so.
Peter Wright doesn't lose.
Tell me about it. You got rolled 11-9, I think it was. Okay, Snags is rolling to the world of NFL. He's going to pick a team that absolutely had a doozy game. I think it was today. Monday. Pittsburgh Steelers over the Tennessee Titans. They're paying $1.71.
I like it.
Just going to go straight win so the boys can get a win in the bank.
Like it, boys. So we're rounding out our multi. We're going to boost it. So it's $11.82. We're going to power that up to $13.53. So we're looking at $10 investment. So we're looking at $130, guys. So hopefully that one gets us across the line. That's a wrap on episode 35. If you like what we're doing, hit us up on our socials. Please like, share, comment, or subscribe to the podcast. Don't forget we're on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Please don't forget our very first giveaway is on our Instagram page. It is really easy to find. You can scroll down and find the little post that says giveaway. We have a $50 UFC Online Store Voucher. You can use that anywhere in the world. We have our very first Run It Back tee, which we're excited to get going. So jump on, tag a mate, give us a follow. That comp ends 1st of November. That's us for episode 35, boys. I'm producer DL.
I am a Sugar Cannot Pick a Win Snags.
I am the Statman.
And I am Stoney, soon to be and new Run It Back leaderboard champ.
And boys, we'll run it back on the next episode of the Run It Back podcast.
Oh, basket case. I am a basket case.